The board chair. I would like to confirm that all members and applicants expected on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond. Robert Dermody.
Here.
Nelson Hammer.
Here.
Chad Riley.
Here.
Steve Tanner.
Here.
Also attending are two town staff support, Rana Mana Dorfer and Elisa Lichman. Applicants on the agenda, I'm just going to call out the business, and then you guys can all chime in if you're more than one of you. So a special permit for US Storage 540 Hillside Ave.
Here.
And your name, please?
Anna Halleck.
Okay, well, welcome back. Special permit for Century Bank signage, 1433 Highland Avenue.
Jim
Evans
Flynn
Huber.
with Century Bank. I'm sorry, Evans.
That's okay. Evans Huber, I'm counsel for the applicant.
Jim Flynn from Century Bank.
And Peter Darlow, the architect for Century Bank.
Okay. There's also an application that's separate for facade changes from that same group. Warehouse picture framing, 49 Highland Avenue. No one? Okay, well, we'll see if they show up. And the Needham General Store, 399 Great Plain Ave.
Here.
Mark and
Present.
Megan.
Okay, thank you. So good evening. Welcome to this open meeting of the Needham Design Review Board, which is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. We've been advised by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Needham Design Review Board is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, the DRB page, identifying how the public may join. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless the participation is required by law. DRB meetings do not typically require allowing public comment. However, tonight we have a special permit application, so public comments are welcome on these items. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other people may see you, and then take care not to screen share your computer unless I agree to it. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. All supporting materials have been provided the members of this board and are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. I would like to review the meeting procedures for tonight's meeting. I will introduce each applicant on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will take comments from the public or comments and questions from DRB members. After the discussion, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And the building department requires electronic submission of building permit applications at this time. A copy of the application, stamped and noted for the type of approval that you receive, will be emailed to the applicant by the DRB support staff. That can then be attached to your building permit application. So we will now start with the first item on the agenda. What I want to reopen a continued hearing on 540 Hillside Avenue. So do you want to just, I will turn it over to you, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Halleck from ProSign Graphics. I think this is our third meeting, but just to give you an update, the monument sign that you guys did approve with some comments did get issued a permit. So that is in manufacturing, and all the comments and recommendations that you guys stated were sent into manufacturing. So all that's been taking place. So tonight we're going to talk about the two wall signs. The first one is going to be that main wall sign, which is the halo lit illuminated channel letter set, which is going to be on the front illumination. Originally, when we had an unofficial meeting, I believe it was just under 80 square feet that we were asking for, and the bylaws say 32. So obviously that number was way off. So we kind of met in the middle, and we wanted to show you a 55 or just over 55 square feet. Again, halo lit channel letters. I added a few more superimposed images. It was hard to kind of show both angles, especially there is some tree in the front of that building. So it's hard to get a good photo of it. They do, I believe, plan on removing some trees. I think after the winter, they want to see how it looks once the leaves fall. But that one is, I think, on option 2, I want to say. Let me see. Oh no, option 1 shows you the 55 square feet. Believe last time we spoke, you wanted to see the differences of the open space or the negative space that's going to be on that building. So there is, I think on one of the second to last pages, you can kind of see them. The first one is that 32 square feet, or I think just under or over 30 square feet. And then the one below it is the one we are requesting for tonight. Not a huge difference, it's somewhat subtle, but it is over the 32 square feet, but definitely not as large as the 80 square feet we were originally requesting. And then the secondary sign is the one that is facing the parking lot, which is the side elevation that we are asking for the secondary sign because it is going to be above the main entrance for when customers are pulling in. It's above the main entrance where they walk in. That one's just over 19 square feet, and that is non-illuminated. Those are just acrylic dimensional letters. But it is going to be that secondary sign. I'm sure you guys are used to seeing these ones already.
Okay, Bob, do you have any questions or comments?
I will, but they're not fully formed yet. So
Okay.
I want to keep looking at the drawings. If someone else is ready to speak, I would defer.
Steve, Steve Tanner?
Yeah. Well, on this first sign in the center, I think they should stick with the 30.36 square feet and not a 54 square foot sign. I don't see any reason why they need a larger sign. You really can't see them from the street. You have to pull up that driveway before you can even see them. I don't see a reason for an extra large sign there.
I think mainly we always start off with what the bylaw allows, especially when designing. When we first saw it on that building, we just thought proportionally it did look very small, which is why we wanted to raise it. I do agree when we first discussed this, the 77 square feet was way oversized, that building. I think that was more, they just wanted a larger sign to be seen, which is why we brought it down to that 55. So it did look more proportional on that facade or that elevation, but not so much where they're just asking for more square footage because they can. It was kind of that compromise where it looked proportional, but they're not asking for so much to advertise. It's just to look proportional on there.
Okay, Nelson? You're muted, Nelson. Nelson, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. I do agree with Steve. I believe the signs are too big. People driving by are going to see the sign at the street, and as far as I can see, that's all the identification that the property needs for what it is.
And any comments on the secondary sign near the door? That's a little under 20 square feet.
No, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
No, that one's okay with me.
All right, Chad, do you have any comments, questions?
I concur on the sign. I think the smaller one looks in keeping with the sign band. I think I mean, if we're talking proportions, I think the 55 square foot one was jammed in there. It doesn't really have a whole lot of breathing room. And the 30 odd square foot one fits better. I also agree that in reality, people trying to find the building aren't going to find it by this sign. It's going to be down the monument sign. The one that's the second sign, the one that's the 19 square feet, seems like a reasonable size for that location. The thing that's a little odd to me that I'm kind of struggling with how to do better is that portion of the building is not symmetric at the ground floor. And so it's sitting a little uncomfortably, kind of partly over one of the windows and partly over the solid pier between the two windows. And so I'm trying to figure out if it might look better if it was either centered over the brick pier or centered over the window. I guess, are both of those windows actually, they're marked like doors. Are they both entrances to the building, or
Yeah,
is
those
just
are
one of them an
gonna
entrance?
Those are going to be the two that you can enter through either one.
Yeah, I don't know. It might look a little better than if it was kind of centered over the brick pier instead of kind of, it looks like it's almost aligned to the left-hand edge of one brick pier, but it's,
If you look at I think it's the third page, it should be the third page on this one. It's very hard to see because it's just a large building, but it's slightly superimposed on how that building looks so far. So you can kind of see it superimposed on the actual building, which might help a little bit.
Yeah, I see it there.
So there, that's kind of how we decided. It looked more, it looked better to be centered in between that entire area, because when we moved it over to the just two of them, then it looked not proportional there. But then in the superimposed image, it kind of was a different view. But I think there was 20 different people we asked. But that photo kind of shows it a little bit more of what it's going to look like in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it a little bit more on the superimposed, but it looks, I don't know, it looks, I don't feel as strongly about it as the oversizing of the other sign, but it looks like it's sitting a little funny where it is.
Yeah, it's hard with those ones because it's always, they design it and then they think of the signage. So it's always,
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, so I think those are my two. I'd be open to some different options, but I feel so strongly on the location on the second one to hold up on it. But I would agree that the first sign, especially with the monument sign out on the street, doesn't need to be any bigger than the 32 square feet.
Okay. Bob, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I apologize, Anna. I'm confused. People have been saying first sign, second sign, big sign, small sign, east, west. I'm lost. So if you could just help me out. I see a sign. I'm looking at the aerial photo first.
Yeah.
And I see way off to the left, it looks like there's a sign been superimposed in there.
Yep. So that is the illuminated channel letter set where we are requesting 55 square feet, which it's not 100% accurate, but for that one, generally that would be 55 square feet superimposed on there.
And that's, so I'm clear, that's the west facing facade, correct?
Let me double check.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Faces hillside.
Yeah, okay, fine. I agree with my colleagues. I think 55 is still too big for what the purpose of the sign will be. People will see the monument sign long before or even after they see that sign, so they'll know where they're going up that driveway. I don't know if it's our purview, but I'm concerned to hear that trees are going to be cut, and I have no idea why, and I certainly hope it's not so someone can see a sign.
No, I don't think they don't want to see it cut, but I think when they were constructing the building, it was just the full trees. It is kind of hard to see the sign, but now that, the leaves are falling, you can clearly see it, so they don't see it. And I don't even think they have permission to. I think it was just a topic, but I don't even think they're
sure that's our purview, but I just couldn't help but as a resident of the town and speak up.
They're not clearing a lot, I promise.
All right. So I'll just sum up my comment there. That sign I think is more appropriate at the 30 square feet level. And then the other sign, for lack of a better word, which on your original map, I will use your letters B. So I'm now talking about sign B. And what size is proposed for that, please?
That is just over 19 square feet. And
Okay,
those are acrylic, non-illuminated letters.
okay, I think that's more appropriate. I don't really have an issue with that. I would argue that technically you don't need a sign up there, but I agree. It would kind of look funny if there was no sign on that side of the building, right? You know, you kind of know where you are, but so
Yeah.
I think a small sign is acceptable there. So I have greater concern, as I do think my colleagues do, with the sign on the A sign on the west side facing Highland. I really think it should be the 30 square feet.
Okay. It seems like there's no way we're gonna get that 55 square feet, which I think that will be fine. I can tell the owners that. They did switch it to halo lit because originally it was front lit at 77 square feet. When they downsized it to 55, you guys or I said that you can do the halo lit, which I think was more in favor with the board. If they went with the 32 square feet, they may want to switch it back, or can I relay that they do have that option to do the front lit because they only wanted to do halo lit if they were able to get more square footage.
I would leave it to the, when I go back and say, Bob, do you have an opinion on that? First,
I'm not-
why don't I start with Steve, since you were just,
Yeah.
go back through the
Help
order.
me out here, Steve.
Steve. are you ready?
I think they should keep the halo lit. And also on the non-illuminated sign, I think they should just center it on that band on the top that it is, because it doesn't appear, it's way off center on the band, and the sign is weighted towards the right-hand side with that centers on the right-hand side. Optically, it kind of drags you to that side. So it should shift to the left, so it's centered on that whole band of the building. That's just my
Well,
observation of that one.
It's currently centered in that's an asymmetric little piece of facade, that brick area. So the little egress door, I'm guessing, goes to a stairway or something on the right.
Correct.
Does
It's centered
throws
on
off
that
the,
entire.
throws off the equally spaced glass entry doors, and they
Yes.
just put it back in the center of the whole piece of the wall, rather than trying to relate to the entry doors.
Yeah, but it doesn't look optically
Yeah,
centered.
I would agree with that. That probably better if it centers over that brick pier between the two sets of doors.
Okay.
Chad, do you have any thoughts on the illumination issue?
I certainly think it looks better with channel lit letters. I mean, sorry, with the halo lit letters rather.
They may still want to keep it, but just to go back to let them know that they have the option. I don't want to tell them that if that's not.
Well, we're going to make a determination tonight.
Okay.
So we're not going to leave it hanging. We'll either give you the
Yeah.
option or tell you what to do.
Okay.
I mean, there are definitely examples of channel lit letters throughout the town. I think in this case, especially if any trees did end up somehow coming down, those letters are facing towards a residential area primarily, even though it's a business street. The apartments right opposite the reservoir and opposite the street here, I think are mostly residential, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it would be sort of more considerate anyways to have the halo lit letters.
Yeah, this is a permit for an extra sign. So it's not like they don't have any other identification. And as pointed out earlier, the street sign is the main access point and the main visibility. This really is more promotional, but I understand the trouble. Those trees are not on the U.S. Storage Center's property. Those are on the adjacent property.
Mark, can I jump back in here? Reviewing the drawings while people were speaking, I don't think I was clear, but I commented with the sign facing the parking lot, the size, but look, I agree with my colleagues' comments about centering it over the pier.
Okay.
I think that would look better. And then that you have the option of which door to go in, which you already do, but it looks odd to not be centered.
Okay.
So I need to get a second to find the front page here. So we have two signs under this special permit. The first one, sign A, is on the facade. The request is for a 54 square foot sign. So we have to either approve that or deny that. And then we can approve, or we can prove as noted and say the alternative that we asked them to make for us so we could see it, the 30 square foot sign.
That's
Please
why
prefer.
for this one, just so
Yeah.
I didn't, hopefully didn't have to continue with that. We had the option 2,
Right,
which
no,
is in the
that's-
plan.
I understand. I'm trying to get there. So, they did submit the other sign. We did ask them to do that. So I appreciate that you went ahead and did that, Anna. It's very helpful. So I would take a motion to approve sign A with conditions that the size be limited to 30.36 square feet.
Seconded.
So moved first.
Okay. All right.
Second, yeah.
Any
Right.
other discussion? All right, so we'll come to the vote. Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair approves. So we will mark this, Anna, as that size and halo lid as submitted.
Got
Okay. All right, and then the other sign is the internal sign. I would accept a motion to approve that sign with the condition that it be centered on the brick pier between the glass entry doors.
I so move.
So moved. Seconded.
All right, come to the vote. Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, so we'll get these marked up and sent back to you, Anna. Thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a special permit application by Century Bank at 1433 Highland Avenue. They have more than one sign, and they have multiple signs basically. So they want to have a review and discussion and look for approval on that. I will note a couple things, Evans, as we start. You have the right to one sign at that address. So by right, you get one sign. By the way you've worded this application, it appears to me that that is the one facing the parking lot for you.
That's correct.
Okay. So if you were a second sign is not approved, is that where you really want it?
Well, by asking you the second sign, are you talking about the second facade sign?
Yes.
Yes, that's facing Highland Avenue, and that, of all the things that we're applying for, is by far the most important to the client because it's facing Highland.
All right. Well, we're trying to help people out in this situation and suggest that the one that's most important should be your by right sign, and then you ask for the other one, and in case it gets denied, so that you have the
Well,
one you need most. And
I
we've
mean,
done this. We
I
did that
think-
with.
I think we're entitled to one. The reason that the one facing the parking lot is our by right sign is because that's the one over the entrance. There's no entrance on Highland.
Okay, it's up to you. So I just wanted to sort of offer that up. When we spoke with US Storage, when they first came in before, they had 3 signs, and we said, you need to pick one as your primary. And after discussion, we sort of agreed which was the most important, and they went ahead and did that. So I just wanted to clarify again with you, and we do this with other applicants when there are a couple signs that have similar weight, to try and figure out which one is most important to them and go with that one first. But if we will proceed with
Well, I mean,
Uh,
if my client's here, if he has a different view as to which of those two is the more important, I'd certainly ask him to speak.
I think you presented it properly, Evans. They're both very important. The Highland Avenue one and the parking lot one are critical. That's the reason we're here for the special permit.
Yeah, I understand. I just, you're entitled to one sign, and these are both, while there's, in the description, it talks about being exceeding the square footage, each individual sign does not exceed the square footage. So you have a by right sign that, you know, you could get approved, possibly with comments. And then the other one is going to be the special permit sign. It is written in a way that the special permit sign is Highland Avenue. I just want, again, confirm that that's what you want to do. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
So why don't you go ahead and go through a description of the sign for us, and we'll do the facade changes because it's a different agenda item. We'll do that next. Let's just go
Okay.
through the signage.
So you have before you 3 applications for special permits. One is for the facade sign that faces Highland Avenue. You know, the sign bylaw contemplates having a secondary sign above, you know, on an adjacent side if you have an entrance there. We don't happen to have an entrance there. There is currently an entrance there that is being removed for bank security reasons, but it seems to us that the spirit of the bylaw that allows a second sign over a side of the building where there would be normally would be an entrance is consistent with our request for a special permit for this sign. The other 2 special permit applications that we have, if you look at the renderings in our submission, you'll see the walk-up teller window on the side facing Highland Avenue. There's a little glass partition on either side of the window, and we're proposing to put a small Century Bank logo there, basically similar to what's on the facade of 1 square foot. And then our third application is for the freestanding sign at the entrance to the parking lot. There's one on each side, one on the Chapel Street side and one on the side, the Highland Avenue entrance side. Those are pre-existing. I spoke to Dave Roach about that. He said, well, he assumes they must have a special permit to have 2 freestanding signs. And we're simply asking to put the Century Bank sign of about 1.6 square feet in each of those. I think we're entitled to one of them, and we're asking for a special permit for the other.
Okay, thank you. I think I can try and focus the discussion a little bit. And I would just take any objection to that from the board, but that those small 1 square foot signs on the panels by the ATM are not generally an issue due to that size, and that you're not sort of filling more than a quarter of a window with them as a graphic element. So I'm certainly comfortable with those as possibly an element that in some cases would fall under an as of right sign. So I think those are.
Mr. Chairman, could I just jump in for a sec? There had been some issues and confusion in referring to what's facing Highland Avenue as an ATM. It's actually a human teller. It's not an ATM. Okay. There's a human teller inside the building that'll be providing service to people who want to interact with a teller but don't want to come inside the building.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, that's driven by COVID situation primarily.
Okay.
Just as a side.
Interesting solution.
And then also the monument signs that are already in place, they're replacing the panels. Those are also under 2 square feet. And so typically, other than, again, the quantity, I don't have a real issue with those unless the board does and wants to discuss them. So at that point, I would move to the two wall signs. And why don't we start with Chad? Do you want to start questions or comments on this application?
Yeah, I guess as I'm kind of looking at it and looking at, aerial map and things like that, the east facade sign would be visible from traffic going either way on Highland Ave. And so, from that standpoint, the one sign would be sufficient. I guess what I can see also, though, is if somebody were traveling from along Chapel Street, sort of from the St. Joe's intersection towards the center of town, you wouldn't necessarily see, you wouldn't at all see a sign on Highland Ave. And so I guess that particular bit of traffic would be relying either on a street directional sign or on the signage on the building. It does seem like at that scale for a building of this size, seems a little heavy-handed. A lot of times when there are signs that we can see on two sides of a building, we like to see them in the same size because it can look sort of proportionally, it can look odd if you've got signs of different height on different sides. I guess what I'm trying to figure out in my mind is for a significant amount of the traffic, the sign over the doorway, might be able to suffice if it was, maybe white on that red portal around the entrance and quite a bit smaller. If you were parked in the driveway, in the parking lot rather, you would definitely be able to see it. And then, really the only thing is the Chapel Street traffic. You wouldn't see it as clearly that that's where the building is. So I'm a little concerned that, if the size of those signs on a relatively small frontage, on two sides of it, it seems a little heavy-handed for what's in most of the center of town.
So I don't know if Peter Darlow knows the answer to this. We've got the overall height of the sign for area purposes. Do you know the height of the letter C in Century? Does anyone know how tall that letter is?
There should, that information should be somewhere in these drawings. I'm just going to click through them.
Let me keep reading here then.
Yeah. The bounding box shows the overall height is 2'3", but the C is not as tall as the bounding box. And even that's cheated a little bit because the Y is dropping down outside of the bounding box. That's on sheet A.5.2.
Yeah, it's helpful for us if we know the actual individual letter scale.
I don't know it, but
for comparison
concur-
purposes.
I concur with what Chad just said. It's probably in the neighborhood of 18 inches or so.
Okay. The reason I ask is that I was coming through Needham Center in the evening and was on Great Plain Avenue, backed up from the traffic light, and was looking at the Citizens Bank sign and looked in the records that we have. I thought that was highly visible from a block and a half away. And they had actually applied for an 18-inch letter and we limited them to 15. And I thought that worked really well. So I'm wondering if that might be a possible idea for this application, that the scale, it's, especially if there's two of them, which I'm not sure I'm convinced of the need for that, but we certainly need to go through the discussion. So that's why I asked that. But if we don't know, we can think about it towards the end and decide if it's a condition that we want to impose or not. So Steve, do you have questions or comments?
I was under the opinion that the bylaw read a second sign has to be smaller than the primary sign. I think like as much as 50%, but I also agree with Chad that these two signs should be the same size. And I think they need to be slightly smaller. I agree with your 15-inch C. And maybe they should be backlit so we don't have bright red shining out right on the town. And they're backlit white, like a lot of the signs in town are moving towards being backlit. And I think where we have two good sized signs here, I think that they should be backlit.
Okay, Nelson?
I agree with Steve's comment. The signs by themselves against the negative space around them seem to work from that relationship, but I agree with everyone that I think the signs are a little bit too big. I especially agree with Steve's comment about the light being backlit would be preferable to me. It's a commercial area, so I'm not worried about light hitting residences, but I'd like to see it a little bit smaller, yes.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, thanks. If there were to be two signs of equal size, they should both be smaller, if that makes sense. I think at this scale, they're too big to have two the same size. And I've been going back and forth as my colleagues speak about whether two signs should be of different size. But this is a somewhat unique condition, I think, because of the scale of the building. The signs are not that far apart from one another. Yes, they're on different facades, but just the linear number of feet, they're not that far apart. This is not a big building. And it's also from some of the perspectives Chad described, it's very visible. I will compliment, I like this sign because it's clean. We see lots of signs in here that have a lot more going on, and I do like it for that. It says Century Bank, that's all. It's clear, it's red on a white background, which also I think argues in favor, it can be smaller. It's not competing with anything. So I would either argue for a sign on each facade if we wanted to go that route, but have them smaller, even though they are already under the 32, especially the one on the Highland side. That's a small, elevation. I think it can be smaller, and because of the clarity I mentioned, I think it will work fine. Otherwise, the second sign should be much, much, much smaller. Like as somebody had suggested, I think even down over the door, maybe. So and I agree with your earlier comments, Mark. I have no issues with the small 1 square foot or less kind of signs, but hopefully I was clear. So I'll repeat, if there were to be two, they both should be smaller and could still be the same size, but be smaller.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that strikes me is that the pace of traffic in this area is very slow on both Highland and Chapel. So visibility, there's plenty of time for people to notice the environment and see these signs. So while the scale is an allowed size, I would be willing to accept one of them at the proposed size, but not two. So, and if the primary sign is the parking lot sign, that's their basic application, I would deny the second one at that size as unnecessary. I think the board has, and if I'm reading the board correctly, there's some sense of a willingness to let them have two signs, given the traffic flows, and that if you had it only on Highland Ave, there would be some question about what it is on the parking lot side. So, but I think the scale of both of them, and I agree they should be the same, but I think the scale should drop. So I would wonder what people think about whether, if a smaller scale, are two of these signs acceptable to the board?
Potentially, I would say, but I think we'd have to get into the discussion of the actual size.
All right, well, my suggestion would be that we go to the size, that the C be 15 inches maximum. I was thinking of 12, but I looked at the Bank of America also, and it's going to be more in scale at 15. And I think, again, the visibility level for that sign on Citizens is very good. And I don't think that the scale of it on the building is excessive. And it also doesn't look too small. We've made that mistake. So I would say if we made the C 15 inches high and everything else proportional to that, that would shrink that sign down. Well, it's 10, 15%, probably 18 to 15.
Well, do we know that it is in fact 18, or was that a guesstimate?
That's a guesstimate, but it's a pretty accurate guesstimate. I mean, it might be 17, it might be 18 and a half, but it's pretty clear from looking at the schematic that is part of the submission, that it is approximately 3/4 of the size of the box.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Any other comments on that idea? Nelson
Oh.
or Steve? Go ahead, Steve.
I would like to see the letters backlit because there are quite
Okay.
a number of banks in Needham with backlit letters. It's a much classier letter instead of a bright red face. That you see bright red plastic being lit. That's what they used to have in all the old malls. And even the old malls are getting rid of letters like that. So I don't see a need to have the face lit letter. I definitely would like to see a backlit letter.
Okay. Nelson?
I agree with Steve on that. Yes.
Okay. And are you comfortable with 2 signs if the C is 15 inches and the rest of the letters shrink proportionally?
Yes.
Okay. Chad? Same
I would
question
not
to you.
object to the 15-inch C and backlit letters.
Okay. All right, so I would, I think Evans will approve, we'll take a separate copy of this and give you your by right approval, and then a second copy, and then I'll make another copy and do the special permit approval.
Okay.
But I would accept a motion to approve the wall signs with the maximum, with the C, the letter C scaled to 15 inches maximum, and the rest of the letters shrink proportionally. And
Excuse me,
that they
Mark.
be, and that the letters be backlit and not internally illuminated.
Excuse me, Mark. Point of information, I guess, is in my channeling my Mr. Fee hat. Are we doing one sign at a time?
Well, he didn't actually apply for the primary sign, so I'd like to just approve it, and I can do repeated. Yeah, we can vote. So the
Okay.
first
I
question
didn't
is,
think it was necessary, other than a facade review in general. I didn't think it was necessary to apply for the primary sign, since we have
oh,
that.
absolutely. No, of course you do. If you came in and wanted one sign, you don't just get whatever you want. You know, we do what we just did. We say, we think the scale might be better at a different size, or we might want to relocate it. So there's no by right 32 square foot sign. It still requires review.
I thought that was comprised within the facade review.
No, they're separate.
All right.
So, okay, so let's take the parking lot sign. Take a motion to approve the parking lot sign, north elevation parking lot, with the conditions that the sign be scaled, that we shrink the scale of the sign so that the C is 15 inches high and the rest of the letters shrink proportionally. And that it be backlit.
And backlit, yes, so moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so here's the vote. Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley,
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The second, and now on the special permit, I vote that I would take a motion that we approve the special permit signage, that in one motion, that the street signs and the signs on the glass panels be approved as submitted, and that the east elevation Highland Avenue sign be approved with the conditions that it shrink proportionally. The C is a maximum of 15 inches high. The rest of the letters shrink proportionally, and that there be backlit letters, not internally illuminated.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Seconded.
Seconded.
Okay, you can sort that out, Rana.
Just
All right.
spread it out, give us turns.
So
Rock,
well,
paper,
I should
scissors.
email you each article. Yeah. So Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley,
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right. So that is the signage. Then we have, secondly, a permit for facade changes. And I will turn it back over to you, Evans.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for those votes. So you can see our submission. This is taking over the space that was previously occupied by dry cleaners next to Anton's. So the design elements of the new facade are this sort of awning that would replace it's sort of a horizontal element, architectural element that replaces the more the sort of older looking green awning that's above Anton's. And then the rest of the facade changes, you know, I can't describe them any better than what's shown in these drawings, but Mr. Darlow can certainly answer any technical questions or aesthetic questions as to why this design was chosen.
Yeah, Peter, why don't you take us through a little bit some of the materials, what they are? I mean, I see a reddish material around the door. We've got this awning. It looks like it has slots in it. Could you just?
Sure.
There's the panels above. I don't know if it's my printer or whether they're solid colored. So if you could just kind of run us through the materials and the composition.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're doing is we're fully refreshing the facade that Century Bank, the portion of the building that Century Bank is occupying. And what we are doing is taking some of the elements that Century Bank has used in some of their other more recent branches and integrating them in with this existing building. And so I don't know how folks here, how familiar you are with the history of this particular building. It's been a number of years in its current state. If you were to take the existing overhanging roof off, there actually is a horizontal canopy structure in behind all of that faces towards the parking lot that's been there since the building was built in the early 70s. And then the upper facade above that is just concrete block. So we are skinning over the concrete. So we're taking off this wood structure. We're salvaging the structure of the old canopy that's in behind it, which establishes the horizontal datum above the existing storefront. And then we're carrying that around onto the Highland side where the existing canopy structure does not in the old facade exist, but there had been a band of metal along that side at the same height as we're doing the canopy on that side. The canopy is a mix of solid roof, which is what is facing the parking lot now, and the old canopy inside is a solid roof. And then on the Highland side, it is a solid roof at the walk-up teller window zone. And then we shifted to integrating in a sunscreen system across where we have the storefront windows on the Highland side only. So this is all wrapped in metal. The upper portion of the building that is, if we were to take the roof off and expose it as concrete block, we're covering it over with a composite metal panel. What you have been describing is more or less a white background. It's actually a silver metal. It does read white in bright sunshine. I don't question that, but it is a silver gray tone. The canopy structure is a charcoal CMP finish on the front edges, the visible edges. And then we're replacing all of the storefront glass. We are probably filling in about 10 to 15% of the total glass area. We're actually making it a bit more opaque at each end of the branch layout. And so it's all new storefront with a black anodized aluminum framework there. And the base, there's an existing worn out brick veneer on the face of the concrete block under the existing storefront. So we're taking that off. Some of it's already dropping off. And then we're covering that over with black porcelain tile, which will hold up much better than any other the materials that are there. So that's the general and then at the walk-up window that where you approve the two very small signs, we have a couple of red glass panels as windbreaks. So you have a roof overhead and then windbreaks either side of the walk-up window. The red arch, the main, the bank entry, that is also CMP material that wraps that and creates that framework, and that passes through to the interior at that location. I think that kind of covers the basic elements of the facade.
Okay, thank you. That was very good. Actually, that was very helpful. Bob, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. I think it's definitely an improvement of the existing conditions, so that will be welcome.
Nelson,
No comment.
Chad?
Overall, I think it's a handsome design. I think the silver actually would be better than the white, which I had misread in the rendering. Looking at sheet A.11.1, which is the 4 sort of perspective views and the elevations. One thing that isn't really addressed is how the existing dry cleaner canopy and details and things like that are going to be terminated. The bottom right rendering makes it look like there's an end closure panel that's going to be installed to kind of cover up the end of the awning, and that the darker gray awning of the Century Bank will kind of terminate into that end condition. But it's, I'm sort of reading into it as opposed to what has actually been stated. So could you just talk a little bit about how the existing finishes are going to be kind of terminated and juxtaposed with the new Century Bank design?
Are we talking about where Century Bank stops on the parking lot face and Anton's picks up?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So we're taking off the roof structure only on our portion. The portion that remains over Anton's is to remain. Wrapping over that, the dry cleaner space facing the parking lot, and then that wraps onto Chapel Street as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Storefront, as I mentioned, we're replacing it completely. Currently, the laundromat storefront glass runs right into the Anton space, and you couldn't tell there was a difference between the two tenancies. So that's what has led us to fill in some of the glass there and have that punched opening kind of stop our facade up, and so that it doesn't get mixed in with the adjacent dry cleaner's facade.
Peter, I think
And
the question was focusing on where the sloped awning meets our horizontal canopy.
So, we're only addressing the sloped awning as it pertains to the Century Bank portion, which is roughly 40% of that length of the facade facing the parking lot. And once we meet essentially the demising partition between the two, we are refinishing that edge of the overhang roof and closing that off. But we're not doing anything specific to the overhang once it goes over on the top of the dry cleaners section.
Yeah, I think that the closing it up is the part that I just wanted to make sure that was in the plan, and that we weren't looking into the.
Correct. No, it's hollow there, as I was trying to describe, up above the old canopy. So yes, we'll fill that in with a solid panel.
And then I guess the only other thing. Okay.
Go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was an unrelated question. So if your question mark was related to the canopy, we might as well stay on that one.
Well, I had the same question because you're basically cutting off that awning and then now there's a hole there. Question is, are you filling it with awning fabric? Are you filling it with the metal that you're using on the new canopy covering?
So actually, the existing structure is a wood frame structure. It's actually, its front edge is just painted wood, and then it's just got the asphalt shingles on the slope.
Okay.
On the side, we would probably fill it in with a wood panel and paint it out, probably in the tone of our overhang, so it kind of becomes more neutral, which is basically a graphite color.
Okay. Okay, my other question is, did I get this correct? The new solid canopy is on an existing framing structure of some sort?
So there's an existing, yes, there is an existing canopy structure buried inside of what you see as the sloped awning right now,
Okay,
facing towards the parking lot. We are going to salvage the structural elements of it only, reinforce it, and then cover it
okay.
again.
And do you know how it's going to drain?
It drips off the front edge just as
It's
the
just-
current roof does.
Okay, it's just a runoff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or
do-
comments?
I
Bob?
Ask
Just
about
a very small kind of one that I had just to finish mine up is on that same rendering, the sheet A-11-1 in the bottom right, there's a bollard at the end of each of the three clearly designated parking spaces, but there's one that's kind of half hatched in like it's an accessible aisle or something like that, and there's no bollard at the end of that one. Not that I'm any great lover of bollards or anything, but would it make sense to have a bollard in that location just so cars didn't drive up and overhang the sidewalk or anything?
Well, I think that area that you're describing is supposed to be left vacant for handicap access. It's not a parking spot.
The striped area would be the MAAB or ADA required drop-off space. And in fact, I believe when Evans was talking with the town about this in a very preliminary fashion, there was the desire that we cut in a handicap accessible point onto the sidewalk there. Currently, it doesn't exist.
If you look at the current Google Street View, those stripes show as much wider. It looks like that area is only half striped in the rendering.
If you look at the last page of our submission, it shows photos of the existing building. You can see the actual striping.
Yeah. And it also shows where the existing bollard locations are. So it looks like you're just reusing the existing ones, maybe repainting or something. So, okay.
That's correct.
No other comments about that one. It's just in the rendering, it was sort of like I don't know if the little hatch marks got cut off or something like that. It was sort of half an aisle and half hatching. So it just,
Yeah,
photo
in the
clarified.
rendering, it's a little ambiguous, but that's an entirely hatched area.
okay.
Yeah, I neglected to mention when I was describing what we're doing. So we're not touching the parking lot side in terms of the site work. We are doing a modest amount of site work on the Highland Avenue side, where there's about 7 feet from the face of the existing storefront out to the town sidewalk. Currently, it's an old planting bed, and we're reconfiguring that planting so that we can get an accessible walkway from the parking lot over to the walk-up window. And then I think, and you've seen our rendering, we also have a set of steps because there is a pitch in Highland over there, back down to the Highland sidewalk at the southerly end.
Okay, thanks. Bob?
Yeah, did anybody ask about lights in the canopy or anything? Are there any lights associated with this facade change?
Yes, we have lights that are under the canopy at the bank entrance, and then we have a light over at the walk-up window.
Is that just a recessed?
They're
How many-
recessed into the ceiling of the canopy.
Okay.
How many fixtures in total?
3.
Got it. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay,
No
any
further-
other questions or comments? All right, so I didn't hear anything that would drive me to put any conditions on this, so I would accept a motion to approve the facade changes as submitted.
So moved.
So moved. Yeah. Seconded.
All right. Bob Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So one last piece of business, Evans, is that I know that you paid, Elisa sent me a fee that you paid for the 3 signs and the facade change. We do have an additional fee for a special permit of $2 a square foot. So we'll let you know what that is. And I'll have to just check our final sizes, and we'll tabulate something based on the conditions we put on that.
Yeah, and of course, we'll send it as soon as we know what the amount
Yep.
is.
Okay, we'll let you know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Very
Chairman.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
board
you.
members. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is the warehouse picture framing, 49 Highland Avenue. Is anyone here for that? Okay. Goodbye. That's good. And lastly, we have the Needham General Store, 182 Great Plain. Oh, I got the wrong address. I'm sorry. Needham General Store, 399 Great Plain Avenue. Welcome.
Thank you.
So why don't you take us through, Mary, the proposed changes? We have 2 issues here. There's a sign, and then there's also facade changes. So we can, actually, you know what I'd like to do is do the facade changes first, and then we can look at the sign. If that
I guess
works for you.
Megan can speak to that.
Sure. The facade changes, I want it, you can see that I put an inspiration photo. We want to do sort of a grayish beige. It's elite, I'm sorry, it's Ellie gray. I know this one says elite gray, Sherwin-Williams for the trim, and then a white for the actual building itself. And then we want to extend the awning to fill the whole front of the building. Right now, it only goes above the current space from the door to the window, but we think it would look a lot more cohesive if it was, you know, centered
Really
on.
great.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. And then we want to change it from orange to really traditional look of a black and white striped awning to go with that whole, you know, the general store feel that we're trying to go for there with the and with the Needham General Store. So as you know, right now it looks like Dunkin' from the outside, and we really want to have it look a little bit more like a general store.
Okay, I guess a couple of quick questions. So the awning would be on the door side, and then the side on the right in front of the cleaners?
Yeah,
Right.
there's two existing orange awnings right now.
But you mentioned that one doesn't go full width. and
Yeah,
you want
that's
to
on the
extend it.
front of the building. Yeah, so the front of the building currently just goes to the edge of the door. So
Okay.
we feel like it will just look more cleaner if it's across the whole, and it makes the sign balance as well. Because right now it's kind of ends sort of before the sign ends, and I think with the orange awning currently, I think it doesn't look as good as it could. I think with the stripes and the having it go across the whole front of it. There it is. Thank you, Mary.
It ends here
Yeah,
now.
okay, thank you.
So we will be eliminating one light fixture. Mary, if you want to just pick that one up again, we'll eliminate that one light.
My second quick question is just to the left of that's sort of a tower section to that front elevation. To the left, there's still a sort of beige and brown painted panels where the seating area is in the store.
Just
Are you
didn't
going
go
to paint
further.
that? Are you going to paint
Yeah, we're
that?
gonna go further. It's gonna be all white with the gray trim.
Okay. All right, so I'll open it up to the rest of the board. Nelson, do you have any questions?
I'd like to hear some other questions first, and then I might be able to come up with something.
Steve?
I think this would make this a big improvement here. I'm satisfied with this design.
Okay, Chad?
As somebody who is frequently driving by this end of town, I will say that there's already been a lot of improvement in the kind of use and area in and around the store. And so, you know, certainly kind of want to encourage and continue that. One question with the repainting is whether you're thinking of sort of a stark white, or, you know, a lot of times in sort of traditional shingle style New England, there's a little bit of a silvery tone to it. So could you just talk a little bit about what kind of color you're thinking in there?
Sure. Yeah, I should preface and say, before I joined my husband in the Dunkin' Donuts and now Needham General Store, for 10 years, I was an interior designer with my own business. So I definitely understand the whole look and feel about colors and exterior colors and such. I was leaning towards something a little bit warmer, like Benjamin Moore mascarpone. I don't know if you know aware of that color, but it's just almost a little softer of a white that has a hint of a gray to it. It's definitely not a stark white, but I think it would work really well with the gray trim.
Yeah, I think something that's not like a real kind of harsh, cold white, I would agree. If it's got a little bit of warmth or, you know, sort of weathered look, either way, you know, I would be open to that. And I think,
and I'm just aware too of the Bird's Hill next door. They're white and blue, so I want to be sure that my white doesn't, you know, look off next to their white, because that could tend to, you know, look a little yellow depending on how. I just want to be sure that they look really well together.
Yep, I would agree with that. Okay, I think on the facade, you know, generally not a whole lot of additional questions then.
Okay, Bob?
Yes, thanks. I think I missed something about the light discussion. I heard about a light being removed because the awning is going to be wider. Are there any lights above the sign? Is that what I see in the sort of composite rendering?
Yes, it's the sign would be externally illuminated.
From above?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then the white background of the sign, would that be the same color as the white on the building?
Yes, we could do that.
I wasn't asking to do it. I was asking what the original intention
No,
was.
I think it would probably look better.
Okay.
Don't you think, Megan?
Yeah.
Yep. And then last question is, and maybe this was discussed when I went to Google Earth because I wanted to see the street view. The Needham General Store established 2020 seems so diminutive compared to Dunkin'. And
I was holding off on signs. I think we're doing
Yeah,
facade
we're gonna
first.
do the sign next, Bob.
I retract that last statement with emphasis.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chad. I was wondering why you didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
All right, so any other questions
No.
or comments, Steve,
I'm fine with the
on
facade.
the facade? All right, so I would take a motion to.
I do have
I'm
one
sorry.
comment, Mark.
All right, Steve.
On the awning, I've seen this fabric before, and that white is not a stark white. It is a different kind of white, and they probably should look at the awning fabric to see what that white looks like when they pick the white that they're going to use for the building.
Yep,
That's
I
good
have a
point.
sample of that already.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I think there's some information from us, but nothing that rises again to a condition from my perspective. So I would take a motion to approve the facade changes as submitted.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, then we come to the vote. Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So let's move on to the sign. Which we've already discussed a little bit. And happy to see the mini mart sign go away. Was never a fan, but. So
We've heard that a lot.
So Mary, do you want to do a quick description of what you're thinking there? And maybe you can mention some of the comments Bob made.
So we're just, we will be taking down the old sign, and the old sign is 42 by 76. And so we're putting up the same size sign. It's, the design is their design. So when you try to stretch it out and put it there with Duncan, you know, that's what you get. It's backwards, of course, but I don't know. Do you see it backwards? I see it backwards.
No, we're good.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so you could always make the Needham General Store bigger if Megan likes it, and then put the Dunkin' a little smaller, you know, whatever fits in that 42 by 76 rectangle.
Well, I guess I'll start with a question that we talked about with Century Bank. What's the height of the Dunkin' letters? What's the height of, say, the general store panel piece? And, you know, so we get a sense of the height of the lettering in the general store and Needham sign.
Oh, I would
Do you
have
have
to
any
go to
info
my
on
other
that?
computer, and you won't see me for a while. But I would say, see, I thought I had it sized. It's sized here. So I would say it's about a 12-inch Dunkin'. I mean, it only really takes up not even a third of the sign, the Dunkin'.
Well, I'm just curious about the relationship. So that's what we're going to discuss is, you know, you've already heard it mentioned which proportions, and you mentioned it yourself. What are the best proportions either way? And, you know, if Duncan's making you do at least a 12-inch letter, and then we know that, then we can work with you. If it's something that you chose to do, then we can work with that as well.
I could speak to that a little bit. We own the Dunkin' too. We bought the Dunkin', and we bought the whole business back in January. And we got the mini mart, you know, kind of came with the Dunkin'. Dunkin's been we've been running Dunkin's and owning Dunkin's for 30 years. And when we got into the mini mart, we said, look, we need to make this better. And we just need to make this so much better and really clean it up and try to be a part of the community. And then we started kind of looking at, you know, what we'd like to see it, and we think the community might like to see it and feel. And the general store really seemed like a better. We took out cigarettes. You know, we wanted to make it a place that families could go and, you know, get some food and bread and milk and basic necessities and maybe pick up a gift. And that's kind of where the whole concept came from, where a general store versus kind of a mini mart, because I don't think it characterized what our goal was. And the general store, so Megan actually designed the Needham General Store logo, and then so we're owning the Dunkin', we're open to the proportions of the Dunkin' or the Needham General. I think it was just kind of mocked up to see what might look and fit that space without increasing signage, you know, keeping it simple. So we're open to that. But we've built a really good reputation now in the community, and people look for us and they say, where are you? It's a mini mart. We don't, and then they're like, oh, we didn't even know this was the place, because we do a pretty good job social media and things like that. And we're getting a little lost. So we definitely need to, you know, get that general store, the Needham General Store, out there a little bit, but we're open to it.
All right. Well, I'll let Bob start since he was first looking at it.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. Thank you for the background info and the context. I like the design. If you're trying to capture quintessential general store, I see that in that, so that's good. But it's just, I think it's dominated by the big Dunkin'. And I did pull up Google Earth from the original Mini Mart sign, where the word Dunkin' is much, granted, it still has the coffee cup and the donuts under it, but the Dunk, you know, it's a proportion thing for me. The Dunkin's too big.
And let me say one other thing is that is the new, so Dunkin' changed their logo. They took the donuts off of.
Right, understood.
And that is their new logo.
But
again, you can make it bigger, you know, obviously.
Yeah, okay, fine, right. I get that, right. So right, that was made the news and everything. So they're just Dunkin' now. So
By the way, I didn't agree with that. I didn't
All
agree
right.
with that. So I like old school.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would change a 60-year-old brand, but that's.
I appreciate Mary's comment that that sign is what it is, and there's only so much room you can do with, you got the sun rays or whatever, the lines up above. But I think there's a happy medium in here somewhere. And my vote or suggestion or hope would be that Dunkin' would get a little smaller and general store, everything above would get a little bigger. Just, kind of a rebalancing. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Steve?
Well, I kind of agree with Bob on that. Duncan does not look optically centered. And if you made general store bigger, you may want to think about moving the established 2020 into where those bottom rays are under the Needham banner and remove those bottom rays. And that would give you more space to make that sign bigger. And it would just fit the space better. And I think Duncan wouldn't look so big. That established 2020 takes up a lot of room on that sign. And right now, these signs look like two words like the same size, one on top of each other. And that's not like really, signs don't work well like that. The top one should be dominant.
We could take out the 2020.
Yeah.
You could move it up into that other space. Take out like the three rays in the middle and put it in there.
Yeah, I think, and to your point, on all the Dunkin' marketing that I do, because I also do that for our Dunkins, it never looks centered because of that apostrophe. Because it's centered, that apostrophe is included in the whole centering bit. But yeah, we could certainly make that smaller and make the sign itself bigger. Even like to your point of just taking out the 2020. I mean, that was the logo that we created back in January when we didn't know what 2020 would really look like.
I mean, we could even take out, I'm just thinking out loud, but I mean, we could take out the 2020 and put another black across the whole sign and make it look like two signs if that's what you wanted. Again, we were just trying to keep it, because it is one sign now and it has that, the ugly mini mart thing. If you wanted it to be more pronounced and more, we certainly could put a black line down above the Dunkin'.
I think that line addition is more like subtraction. I think the space is better.
Okay.
Okay, Nelson?
I agree that the Dunkin' should be smaller, but I don't see the general store being larger. I think if it's made larger, there wouldn't be enough negative space around it. So I would be in favor of just making the Dunkin' sign smaller.
Okay. Who do I have left? Chad?
Can I just ask a question? I'm sorry. So it's only 12 inches now, and that's the only Dunkin' sign.
You want me to, I can go check. I'll go check to make
All
sure.
right. Is that right? All right, because it looks,
I guess
12 inches sounds so small.
The fear is on our end is we're changing so much about the outside of it, is we really want people to still know that there's a Dunkin' there, and that's really the only coloring and only way, that anyone would even know that there is a Dunkin' there.
The fact that it's been there a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
So I would
increase the general store part of the logo. It just made that a little bigger and took out the 2020. You'd be much more pronounced over Dunkin' Donuts.
So I wouldn't mess with the logo too much. I do think that shrinking the Dunkin', I mean, between the colors and the font, it's so iconic that there's so many people that live in the area that just know that there's a Dunkin' there. And if you're not from the area, you probably put it into Waze or something anyways. And so you're going to find the Dunkin'. I think, that there is a certain, balance in the overall logo that you've created. I do think it needs to be bigger. Sometimes one of the things we see a lot is sometimes a logo might be created on stationery or at a certain scale. And when you try to do it on a sign, you run into issues. So I think here, the size of the font, the size of the letter for the Needham and the general are relatively small within the overall logo. So maybe getting rid of the established 2020, if that helps to keep the top where it is, but to kind of spread it out and enlarge it towards the bottom. I think there's a little bit more, I don't know if it's like a 25% increase, but when I look at the rendering, the Needham General Store text just kind of gets lost in there. And, it's so dominated by the Dunkin'. So I think if you can shrink that and make the overall logo a little bigger, which will help to get the font size bigger, that would help. It may be that when you're making the store, when you're making the sign too, it might be that you can cheat the sort of the stroke thickness of Needham and General Store. If it's not 100% exactly identical on print or stationery or a t-shirt or a hat, and on the sign outside, if you can make the stroke of the letter a little thicker, that might help it pop on as a scale of building sign. But I think generally trying to emphasize the Needham General Store and to have the identity of the store and the sign reflect all the other changes that you've made for the positive, that, and I think when I go by, I see a lot more, families and, groups and kids and people hanging out and, buying pumpkins and all the kinds of things that are going on there that you guys have done to the store. And so I think a sign that helps to complete that image, I think, is a good thing. But I would agree, I'd shrink the Dunkin', try to get a little bit more emphasis on the General Store part of it.
Okay, so the actual size of Dunkin' is 9 inches. And the Needham, I'm talking from the top ray to the bottom established, was 24 inches. So that,
But
the look is 24 inches. That's
Right, but letter height, I think, is,
Yeah,
it's the letters
right.
that I'm interested in. So 9, yes. Now I could see people react. That sounds like a small number, but that means the Needham in general is a lot smaller.
Yeah, that's
those
talking
letters,
about a
yeah.
3-inch letter, that's probably 2.5.
Yeah, 3-inch letters.
And that's, we've looked at a lot of these, just worry that without a little, as Chad was saying, a little more density to them, it's not, we're concerned it's not going to be as successful, so if there's a way to, as Steve suggested, move the established 2020 up into underneath the Needham band or eliminate it and just enlarge the other piece. If the Dunkin's 9 inches, I assume that the Dunkin' is the 1/2-inch PVC lettering.
Right, so that would
And
be,
then the vinyl lettering is the general
now
store.
the actual banners would be also. So you'd have
Okay.
mention on the General Store and the Needham, because those sections would be
Okay.
bumped out from the sign face.
Okay, well, that's helpful.
But the other thing is instead of the 42 by 76, and I'm just trying to say, you can make it lengthier, and that way you can, I don't know. I think if it was maybe the opposite, maybe not so much, but I'm thinking 42 by 76 the other way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you have the
Not those
space on
numbers.
No,
this.
this,
But I can make it the same square footage.
No, this orientation is
this works
appropriate.
well.
Yeah, I agree. Keep it the horizontal.
As you can see, we have a positive view of this. We're just trying to make sure.
Yeah,
it's-
you want the Needham and the General Store to be bigger, to really see those letters.
Basically, general store, that's the key word, keywords.
Yeah, whether you make them a little more dense or whether you enlarge the thing that whole band piece and the arch 5% and let it say the bottom of the General Store panel is where the established 2020 is, and you proportionally enlarge it slightly. I think that would help you a lot. And if the Dunkin's at 9 inches, I agree, that's probably where it should be. But you need to get the other one. The other one should have a little more weight. I agree with the other members.
We can definitely take the 2020
Yeah, that's easy.
out. We had just put it in the logo, like we sell hats that say Needham General and has that on it. So, but
Well, they
we
don't
can
have to, again, as we've said, trying to make everything identical all the time sometimes
Yep.
can be self-defeating because you just push things the wrong way.
Yep, absolutely agree.
Right, so we can make the stroke bigger on the General Store for sure. We can make it wider.
All right, I'd look to the members to say, are these things we want to make conditions, or are we giving them advice here? We've done both in the past.
I think that there should be advice about the stroke because people who are hard of don't see very well, they need the spaces between the letters to actually read the letters. And if you make those strokes thicker on general store, you could be making those letters harder to read.
Okay, so I guess the only condition I would say if we want to make it a condition is that they remove the established 2020 and enlarge the upper image, you know, maybe 5 to 10% of what's, so that the upper image from the bottom of the general store line to the top of the raise is 24 inches. Is that reasonable? The board members?
Megan,
Yeah,
it's your logo.
I
I'm
think-
fine with losing that.
The what did you say, Megan? I didn't hear
I
you.
said I'm fine with losing 2020 right
Okay,
now.
all right.
You know, you can make it small and stick it in very, you know, like you're signing your name on the bottom of the sign in that
Yeah.
white band. It could
Oh,
say established 2020, like someone may sign the sign.
All I heard you say was I'm losing it, and then I got nervous. So
Oh, well,
we
that's
don't like it
most
when our applicants say that.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
2020 has been a nightmare for
Yeah.
us, so.
All right.
Yeah, she
we haven't
doesn't
had-
want
We haven't had a day
2020.
off we haven't had a day off in 7 months.
Not alone.
Yeah.
One comment I want to make, and this is for myself and my colleagues, but I guess for everybody, but why we press so hard to get the actual dimensions of letters. And you heard us do that several times tonight, because I just recall that I'm looking at a superimposed, you know, Photoshop rendering or what have you onto, and that's can be deceiving. And in that, yeah, Duncan looks huge, but then you hear it's 9 inches. So that's why we spend the time that we do. So thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
when we were meeting in person, we would often do some little sketches and things like that. And we typically don't want to design things for anybody, but I was playing around with Photoshop just as we were talking. May I share screen here?
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, PowerPoint, I guess, is what I was playing with. So let's see, where'd it go now? I was looking a second ago and I saw the share screen, but now I'm not seeing that option. Sorry.
Should be bottom in the middle.
Middle
It's
bottom.
There it is.
green.
Yeah. I got it. So something like that, possibly even putting the established 2020 sort of right in the middle there. But it gets you the logo a little bigger. You can shrink the Duncan a little bit, and it just, you know, it makes the primary image the general store, and it keeps the spirit of your logo there. And so something along those lines, I think, would just make it a more successful sign.
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Chad, you've got a side business.
Keep it big. I was gonna say, can you email me that?
Screen capture.
That's what we were all thinking. Chad just drew it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we usually draw them at the meetings. So I would say we'd just make a condition that I'm not gonna, I don't know, I'm comfortable at 9 inches. We've pushed people down to 8 a couple times, and given that it's not along the road, it's a busy street, I get a little concerned about the visibility. So I'm comfortable with the 9. So I would let them work to increase that overall piece, similar in a way to what we've discussed, some percentage. It's probably around 10%, I would guess, Chad, when you did that.
I just kind of did like a little screen capture and dropped it into PowerPoint, so I didn't measure anything. Yeah, I don't know.
So I'd take a motion to approve it with that condition.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, we vote. Robert Dermody,
Approve.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair approves with conditions. So we will write that up, and but you know what we're after, and I think we're pretty clear on that. So thank you
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Hope you get a day off.
Good luck.
soon.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, review the minutes of October 19th. Are there any comments or changes? Well, I think we were all there, so.
I was gonna ask you.
Not me.
Oh, Chad
I
wasn't.
wasn't, I don't think. Yeah.
I'd have to, let me look at the list of attendees here. Nelson. Oh, it was Deborah. Okay. So motion to approve the minutes of November 16th.
So moved.
Oh,
No. You said November 16th.
Oh,
we're already working into the future. It's gonna save time.
October 19th.
Sorry, that was very abrupt. I was like, no.
I have a
No,
good
no,
time
no.
here.
Can we just approve them for the whole year and be done?
Yeah, yeah. Approve the minutes of October 19th, 2020.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, Robert Dermody,
Yes.
Nelson Hammer,
Yes.
Chad Riley.
I wasn't there,
Oh,
so
you
if you
weren't
got my
there.
votes, I'll
Steve
abstain.
Tanner. Steve
I
Tanner.
wasn't there also, but I would approve the minutes.
No, yeah, you can't approve them. The chair approves. So we got enough. Thanks. Any other comments, business issues?
This picture framing sign has a lot of issues.
Yeah, they're basically rebuilding what they had, but I don't know when we'll see them. You didn't hear from them, Elisa?
Well, the woman who I dealt with, who submitted her application perfectly, I will say, and very complete, told me that she had was having her last day at work on the 30th, last Friday. She told me this last Monday. I said, who's taking over? Give me their email. I'll email both of you so that you know what's going on before you depart. And she did, and she gave me the name of the guy, Ron Ferrigno. He was on the list of invitees that Clay sent out. So I don't know what happened.
Okay, well, we'll wait to see if we hear from them.
He'll
So,
probably realize it after this is all over.
Yeah, it's like,
But,
well, occasionally people think they don't have to go. They just send it in and it's like the building department. They review it and send it back. So we should confirm that maybe if we hear.
Yeah,
from
I'll
them.
follow up, but I sent them both last week, sort of it's
Yeah.
a standard email I send to everyone.
Okay.
Here's the agenda. You'll be getting a Zoom invite at the end of the week and then again on Monday evening. So,
Okay.
don't know.
All right, if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Robert Dermody,
Aye.
Nelson Hammer,
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Steve Tanner,
Aye.
and the chair approves. See that, Lisa, I do it in alphabetical order, so they come right out in perfect order for you.
It's great. It's
And
great.
thanks to Clay again, and whoever
thanks.
thought of sending the invite
Absolutely.
again right before the meeting was brilliant.
That's his idea.
Thank you. It works, Clay.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
Because Bob was doing something else and wasn't paying attention, right? It's like, oh yeah, look.
I was doing like 3 other things.
Yeah, okay.
So
All right.
Len's wife went into labor. Thank
my
goodness this
God.
wasn't during the snowstorm.
How
know.
about that? Wow.
Yeah, but we'll have to ask him when next time, if that's his
That's
first,
exciting.
I don't even know if that's his first kid or not. He's a young guy, so. But, yeah.
Wow.
Just a heads up, next